Welcome to the Librarian's Midnight Library. I'm a librarian, and the world has finally gone quiet enough for a story. Today, we step into the vast, light drenched corridors of the Hall of Echoes to uncover a tale of mystery. Take a deep breath, leave the world behind, and let's begin. Professor Julian Thorne was a man who hated goodbyes. He spent his life traveling to the most beautiful corners of the earth, the lavender fields of Provence, the jagged ice cliffs of Patagonia, the spice markets of Marrakesh. But he always felt the same sharp, bitter grief the moment he had to leave. He felt as though he were leaving pieces of his soul behind in every city, and so he decided to do exactly that. Julian was a scholar of forbidden optics. He discovered that a shadow is not merely an absence of light, but a record of a body's presence in a specific moment of time. With a specialized silver camera and a ritual involving ancient glass, he found a way to detach his shadow. He began his collection in Paris. He stood on the banks of the Seine at sunset, the water a shimmering path of gold. He clicked the shutter, felt a certain sharp coldness in his heels, and walked away. But his shadow stayed. It remained etched against the stone of the quay, a permanent resident of a perfect Parisian evening. By the end of the year, Julian was a man without a shadow. He walked through the bright noonday sun of London, and the pavement beneath him remained stubbornly white. People crossed the street to avoid him. There is something deeply unnerving about a man who casts no darkness. But Julian didn't care. He felt expanded because his shadows were still out there. He felt connected to every place he had visited. When it rained in Paris, Julian felt the cool dampness on his neck. When the sun rose over the Sahara, he felt the heat on his back. He was there and here all at once. He called it the Great Presence. But the human mind was not built for such vastness. By the third year, the echoes began to overlap. Julian would be sitting in his quiet study in Oxford, trying to read a book, but he would feel the jostling of a crowd in a Tokyo subway. He would be trying to sleep, but the roar of a waterfall in Iceland be thundering in his ears. He began to lose the sense of where Julian actually was. He looked in the mirror and didn't see a face. He saw a flickering mortgage of 1,000 landscapes. He was a man made of postcards. He tried to reclaim his shadows, traveling back to the quays of the Shine and the sands of the desert, but they were gone. His shadows had taken on lives of their own. They had grown roots. They didn't belong to him anymore. They belonged to the world. On a Tuesday night, Julian realized the final truth of his experiment. To be everywhere is to be nowhere. He walked into the center of the Hall of Echoes, not this library, but the one inside his own mind. He sat on the floor and closed his eyes. He didn't try to block the sounds or the sensations. He let the wind of 100 countries blow through him. He let the salt of 7 seas sting his eyes. Slowly, his physical body began to thin. He wasn't dying, he was simply distributing. If you go to that quay in Paris today, you might see a smudge of darkness on the stone that looks like a man leaning against a lamp. If you walk through the spice market in Marrakesh, you might feel a certain familiar presence beside you in the crowd. Julian Thorne is still traveling. He's the wind in the trees and the shadow on the wall. He's the man who traded his self for the world and found that the world is a very lonely place when you have no shadow to call your own. We keep his silver camera here in a locked box in the Hall of Echoes. Sometimes, when the moon is high, the glass of the lens glows with a faint flickering light, showing a man who is finally completely everywhere. The echoes have returned to the stone, and the shadows have found their rest. Thank you for journeying through the Hall of Echoes here at Librarian's Midnight Library. If you have ever wanted to stay in a moment forever, remember Rise of the Professor's Camera. Subscribe to keep your place in our infinite halls. Until the next midnight, stay grounded and sleep well.